So apparently Marvel has a big CGI problem. Let's figure out why.
Marvel has a CGI problem. Also, we got a real set today because if I use the green screen, that'd be a little ironic. Now, before you go off in the comments,
W setup.
I know there's been a whole bunch of discourse about this and you might be sick of it, which I totally get. This video is not the CGI is bad take that you might think it is. I'm not saying that Marvel should have a practical Hulk or they should have cast a real life dragon for Shang-Chi. Although now that you mention it, I have a tremendous amount of respect for visual effects and CGI artists. I think it requires an insane amount of talent and skill to create stuff like that, and it is 100% a valid art form that deserves as much praise as anything else in the industry. Also, when I say CGI, I'm really talking.
Apparently Marvel is mistreating the people that are doing their CGI. I don't know how that's happening, bro. And I feel so bad for them because like you always see people on Twitter just tearing up the CGI, and apparently they don't have enough time to make it as good as they want to. The deadlines Marvel set is crazy. A lot of blame can be placed on that side, not necessarily that the CGI is bad. They didn't have enough time to perfect it.
CGI is the term that most people are familiar with, and it makes for a catchier title. So many movies use CG and visual effects in ways that you may not even notice to enhance their visuals and the story being told. So a movie using it is by no means a bad thing. However, the overuse of these effects starts to become an issue when they become too much of a distraction and break our suspension of disbelief. So I would say that Marvel's CGI struggles in two separate areas. The first being what I would call unfinished effects. I don't like to call these effects bad because as we'll talk about later,
I noticed this in theaters. A lot of the time when people point out CGI, I don't notice that it's bad. Like, it literally does not affect my viewing of the movie. And this didn't either, to be fair. But like, it's not good when you notice something is bad, especially me as somebody that does not look for it at all. When Toby came out and when Andrew came out, especially when Toby came out of the portal, it looked horrible. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I try to defend Marvel a lot. It did not look good. I feel like we all overlooked it because obviously No Way Home is that movie, but I have to admit that I noticed that, bruh.
The artists work incredibly hard and oftentimes are not the ones responsible.
Like this scene in Black Widow, I did not notice until somebody pointed out on Twitter. Maybe that was because I was watching on my TV and not the big screen, but like it didn't unimmerse me as much as the Spider-Man one did.
Responsible when something doesn't look as good as it
This one is crazy though.
A notable example being in the trailer for She-Hulk, where the main character looks noticeably less detailed than Bruce Banner's Hulk does. I know it's just a trailer, but the show's
apparently they're fixing that though. Apparently they're fixing that.
How someone like Iron Man looked in 2008 versus how he looks 10 years later, you can start to see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, look, I'm a Marvel defender, but Iron Man did look a lot better. I was going into this video thinking I was gonna defend Marvel from this guy. No, he's low-key spitting facts, bruh.
Unnecessary effects. These are things that with a reasonable amount of pre-production and planning would be expected to be done practically. An example being in this scene in No Way Home, the Green Goblin mask is fully CG despite a practical helmet having existed since 2002.
I did not know that.
Where did it go? Did we lose it? And in Thor: Love and Thunder, it's these weird CGI helmets that are always tracked at Hemsworth and Portman's faces. Things that by all means could and realistic.
See, like those type of things I do not notice when I'm watching a movie. And I feel like the average person watching a movie doesn't notice. So maybe he notices it because he looks for this kind of stuff. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I feel like the average moviegoer isn't like, oh my gosh, that helmet is CG. This movie is taking down my enjoyment of the movie. I just feel like it's not like that, bro.
Should be real and tangible, and instead for various reasons are done in CG. Now there's almost always an explanation for why something like this is done. In Endgame, the time travel suits were entirely CGI because the designs of the costumes weren't finalized by the time they began shooting.
That's fair.
Spider-Man in Civil War and Nick Fury's gun in Far From Home. For the Green Goblin mask, it's most likely because a practical helmet would have issues with reflections. This shot was going around on Twitter for a while.
I did not notice this. This is exactly what I mean.
This is because Tony Revolori had scheduling conflicts and wasn't able to film that shot.
I did not notice. I did not notice that. I feel like people are dragging it a little bit, bro.
Oftentimes completely replacing the costume for some reason. Basically, in every one of these cases, there's a clear reason for why it was done in CG versus practical. And if you ask me, the occasional instance of this is not the end of the world. Some things fall through the cracks and have to be fixed in post. Like this scene in No Way Home, regular blind lawyer Matt Murdock was initially catching a snow globe that was thrown through the window, and it was decided that it didn't look right in camera, and so it was replaced with a brick.
This one is crazy. I didn't know about that until like, it looked like he caught a brick, bro. This is what I mean. The people that do their jobs, Marvel, can you pay them, bro? They're doing amazing.
Now, I've seen a lot of people saying that the reason this is done is because of pandemic restrictions, with Marvel wanting to maintain a safe filming environment. And I do believe that's part of it. The pandemic's not over by any means, and I'm 100% a believer in safety precautions for film sets. However, some of this has been going on since 2018, and I think there's a bigger, clearer reason for why it's done. The Marvel pipeline. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is a machine. There is so much content.
They're doing so much right now.
Had Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor
Strange, so much.
Thor: Love and Thunder, Loki, Hawkeye, What If, Moon Knight, Ms.
Like, you don't want all of this. Like, all of these were good, but you don't want quantity over quality at the end of the day. Because while phase 1, 2, and 3 were not as packed up as phase 4, phase 4 probably is the weakest phase still. We can't do that. And I'm not just talking about CGI right now. We're talking about quality of shows too. But like, even the CGI.
Crazy hot take here. That's a lot of things. Now, Marvel
That's
is
not a hot take, bro.
Obviously, teams upon teams of people working on all these projects. However, there are so many things being made, usually with such a short turnaround time, that a lot of times the creators behind these properties struggle to keep up and are unable to properly plan the production. And planning is one of, if not the most important thing when making a movie or TV show. Pre-production is where the director has to manage scheduling, storyboards, script changes, previs, costumes, props, concept art, set design, literally you name it, and it is most likely handled during pre-production. A good plan can make or break a movie. That is quite literally the job of the director. And more things fall through the cracks. Costumes aren't designed before filming dates, actor schedules aren't set in stone, they don't have time to go.
And I do feel like we can say that wasn't planned out, but at this point, Kevin Feige, we need that to be planned out before we shoot, because we're sacrificing what the movie looks like because of that. I don't think Marvel can make that excuse like, oh, we just didn't have that planned out. You're Marvel. You planned Thanos from the beginning.
And I think if Marvel were to slow their productions down to, let's say, 2 movies and 2 shows per year, not only would that do a lot to prevent this overuse of VFX, but it would also help combat the ever-growing fatigue people are having with the superhero genre. When you emphasize quantity, no matter what, the quality will always suffer. Believe me, I know, I'm a YouTuber. Now, you might be saying, I don't notice when they use effects like this, and if they ever do, it doesn't bother me. And I totally respect that. If the visuals aren't that important to you, that's a subjective taste, but there is a little bit of a bigger issue than just how the movie looks, and that's right, it's one of those videos.
Oh no, capitalism, bro.
Maximize profits, right? Meaning that they'll often look for the cheapest and fastest ways to make their product. And that happens all the time with the VFX industry because visual effects workers are non-union. Let me say that again. Visual effects workers are not unionized.
Yeah, that's the problem. Everybody that works in visual effects for any company, not just Marvel, I'm on your side. I'm not on Marvel's side. I remember at first, when I was first hearing about it, it was like, I really like these movies. Do I really care? No, I care about you guys. You guys are getting overworked, and like you guys are helping on some of the movies that made my childhood, bro. We want to see you get paid. We want to see you get that bag and not be overworked.
In the long run, it's cheaper and faster to fully CGI something as opposed to hiring a practical prop or costume designer to make it for real, because those workers are unionized.
That's a horrible
reason why the CGI.
That's a horrible way to go about it.
It's been said that She-Hulk's model was initially much more muscular, and the CGI artists were told to keep slimming her down over the course of the show's production, meaning that the effects are less polished than someone like Bruce Banner Hulk would be. This is not a decision made by the director or any one specific person. I'm not saying that Dr. Kevin Feige is in the render farms forcing.
Yeah, no, I'm not blaming Feige or anything.
It's a flawed system that the company uses to make content faster and cheaper. A lot of what these artists will be doing, especially with this fix it in post mindset, is what's called rotoscoping. That's basically cutting out a subject by hand, frame by frame from the background. At 24 frames a second, to rotoscope just a minute of footage, you need to hand cut out the subject almost 1,500 times. It's one of the most tedious and annoying jobs you could do in effects. I know, because I've had to do it and it sucks.
That is crazy. Me and my friend were talking about this. I would never get into a job like this. It looks like one of the most fulfilling jobs after you're done and seeing what it became. I respect everybody that works in that field, but I just think it's way too much. Like, we were talking about it. I definitely want to go back, see what they do, see how they do it, but actually doing it, no, I could never. That's why I gotta give my respect to them.
I am quite frankly sick and tired of working on Marvel shows. Marvel has probably the worst methodology of production and VFX management out there. They can never fix the look for their show before more than half the allocated time for the show is over. The artists working on Marvel shows are definitely not paid equivalent to the amount of work they put in. The charm for working on a Marvel movie is way overrated now, and
I feel like that's what they're relying on. Big companies they want their workers to work for a Marvel, and I feel like Marvel is high key. They're using the VFX people, bro. They need to be unionized. We need to see Marvel change, and we're gonna need a little bit more practical effects, Marvel. Like, I know you're cheap, but come on now.
I'd rather be happy working on a TV series after decades and decades of this. And if you look at the comments of this post, you can see a majority of people agreeing and sharing similar experiences.
It's like every VFX experience from Marvel, I've never heard any good thing.
Because the process inherently encourages crunch, and so any decision to fix it in post leads to countless more hours of unhealthy working conditions in the visual effects department.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you need to be planned out more.
So this all feels like such a downer, and I'm sorry about that, but there is some hope that this might not be the case forever. Firstly, with more big name directors like Sam Raimi fighting to keep their directorial vision, last-minute changes could in theory become less common and lead to less of a need for these kinds of visual effects. It's part of why Doctor Strange as an Evil Dead-style zombie in full practical makeup was the coolest thing in the entire world. Add on top
exactly.
Of that,
this is why we need people like Sam Raimi involved in things. Like, because that looked amazing. I've been saying Multiverse of Madness is probably my favorite directed MCU movie ever. Like, I love Sam Raimi. I need him back. We need him back, bro.
Stagecraft, or as you might know it, The Volume. It was created by ILM and Greg Fraser for The Mandalorian and has since been used for things like The Book of Boba Fett and The Batman. And in theory, it should be capable of solving all these issues. To sum it up, it's a large wall of LEDs that project an image of a 3D background that's rendered in real time with the camera movement simulating depth. And that's where we come back to Thor Love and Thunder. Because Thor Love and Thunder used stagecraft during its production, and Thor Love and Thunder looked like a big pile of
Did it really? This is what I mean. I wasn't in the movie theater going, oh my God, that looks terrible. Even that one scene, you know what I'm talking about. That scene that everybody's talking about on Twitter with the reflection. Like, when I was watching it, I already saw that picture on Twitter, and it didn't look as bad as it does on Twitter. Like, it still looked bad. Like, Marvel can definitely do better. But like it didn't take away from the movie. That's all I'm saying.
It's always the big vistas and silhouette shots were good for Twitter screen grabs, but for so many scenes, the characters clearly...
Okay, see, this is exactly what I mean. While I'm watching the movie, this doesn't look bad. Watching now, that looks terrible.
Now, we're not trying to ruin these movies or anything. It should go without saying, but if you enjoy the MCU, you're not like a bad person or a corporate bootleg.
Hey, Marvel, get your act together. I'm still probably gonna watch your movies. Like, you already got me invested in like 35 projects now, but come on, bro.
Or anything like that. I just think it's important to look with a critical eye at the practices of these studios, especially one as massive and influential as Disney. You may not care too much about the visuals, but at its core, film is a visual medium. Why should we settle for the bare minimum from the biggest movie franchise in the world, often at the expense of the workers involved, when in this year alone, with movies like The Batman, Top Gun, Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's been proven...
No, I agree 100%, 1000%. What I'm taking away from this video is I did not have this perspective going in. Why are we settling, Marvel? Why are we settling? After Endgame, after Infinity War, we should only be striving to get better. We should only be striving to put out quality content. And I feel like that's not, you guys are focusing on quantity while the quality has suffered. And I hope it doesn't continue to suffer, especially with Phase 5 and Phase 6 right around the corner. We don't want to see the same problems that you're having now having then. So you guys need to get your act together. But if you like this video, watch this video just like it. I appreciate y'all.